If you have built a software that cannot change, then you have missed the whole point of building a software technology. But how does one create software that is always ready for change? Let's find out in this playlist. Hello engineers, welcome to a new playlist on solid principles. This is a very important playlist and a must learn for every software developer. Okay, in this quick introductory video, let's look at why we need to learn solid principles and what are these solid principles. Okay, let's get started. So first, let's understand why we need solid principles, right? So we need these principles in order to keep our code both maintainable and extensible. What do we mean by maintainable? As you know, software is always growing, and that means that it is always changing hands. The person who wrote the first line of code will not be the same person who will be writing the ongoing piece of code, right? So every passing team will need to be able to maintain the software. And that's why it is important to have some best practices in place so that the software is maintainable by anyone, right? And then we need it to be extensible. So what do we mean by extensible? Software requirements are always changing. It can be that we need a new feature. It can be that we need to modify an existing feature. It can be that we need to remove a feature because it is no longer valid. All these are changes, and software world is such a complex landscape that changes are almost impossible to avoid. So our code needs to be ready for such changes, and that's why we need to have some kind of best practices in place so that anybody who is maintaining the software or any team that is wanting to make a change to the software should be able to do so without much effort. So the software needs to be ready for these future changes. That's why we need solid principles. Okay, let's now look at what are these solid principles. So solid is actually an acronym for these 5 principles. So S stands for single responsibility principle, O is for open close principle, L is for list of substitution principle, I is for interface segregation principle, and D is for dependency inversion principle, right? So these are the solid principles. And as you can see, I gave a one-liner descriptions that kind of hint what the principle is about. So in the single responsibility principle, we will learn how to keep our clauses short and how to not make them bloated and keep our code modular so that it is easy to manage. And then we will discuss open close principle, where we talk about how we can keep our code open for extension but not for modification, right? And then we have list of substitution principle, where we will talk about how to successfully substitute one piece with another similar piece without breaking the whole software. And then in the interface segregation principle, we will see how to keep our interfaces short and crisp and not generic and reuse them, and how this gives us more flexibility in our code. And then we'll talk about dependency inversion principle, where we'll see how to depend on common abstractions instead of specific implementations, and then how this principle helps us to keep our software flexible, right? So these are the solid principles, and we will be discussing all of them in great detail in the upcoming videos. So if you haven't subscribed already, do consider subscribing, because this is going to be a very important playlist. We will go into each principle in detail and we will try to understand them with code examples, and then we will see how the violations will look like. We will see how to fix each violation and how this fix helps us to keep our software both maintainable and extensible, right? So with this quick introductory video, I welcome to a new playlist. And in the next video, we will start with the first principle, that is the single responsibility principle. Okay, I hope you're ready and as excited as I am. I will quickly see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Do subscribe to the channel if you haven't done already. I will see you in the next one. Cheers.